All right, we should be live.
We are live at 5. Welcome to Beers, Cheers, and Happenings. I'm Stephen Bartell here with Peter Montai, co-owner of Beards Brewery. Special guest today, we have Phil Hutchison, with Northern Territory Imaging.
Phil is, as commented on already, so talented.
And you got Kathy.
Yeah. Hopefully Kathy is joining us here. She had pre-commented on the post, so we're very excited to have Phil on the show today.
So excited that we were loading pictures at the last
time,
but that's okay.
You know,
get it done.
We do what we can, make it happen, right?
How's it going, Phil?
It's going great, man. I'm super excited to be a part of this situation, man. It's fun. You know, you guys have a great product, and I can't believe you want me to be a part of it.
Well, we're happy to have you today. Why don't you give just a brief overview of what you do and what you're about, and then we'll get into that a little further, a little deeper, and talk about some other things. But why don't we start there?
Yeah. Well, what I'm about and what I do is probably two different things. I'm a commercial photographer, and I think it's an interesting field to be a part of because there's so many people that do it. But what I do is, I think, very important because, I feel that as an artist, as they say, that you should always help people, help produce and promote other artists in your field. So, that's kind of one thing that I always have prided myself on, is being able to promote and help out other artists in the field that do the things that we all do. As a paid artist on a regular basis, I always feel it's our responsibility to promote the ones that aren't being paid on a regular basis. There's a million musicians, there's a million artists, there's a million photographers that that try and push out really hard to produce their images and the content that they do. And, people like us, like you, Steve, and Peter, it's our responsibility to promote these people. And, that's what I do. So I'm excited about that.
Well, that's really cool.
Yeah, and I know that.
Yeah.
And I want you to, and that's great. Don't get me wrong. But you do it through what mediums and stuff, just for the people that aren't familiar with you that might be watching this or watching this later. Let them know what your craft is,
So my craft is, I'm a commercial photographer. I shoot images. I've always done this. I'm the kind of person that's always there. I'm always in the background.
Yeah.
I'm always around.
Yeah.
You touched on that just in our pre-show. Like, you're usually not in front of the camera, right? It's a little uncomfortable sometimes to be in front of the camera when you're used to being behind the camera.
This is the least favorite thing I like to do. Yes.
Well, that's what it's kind of fun.
Yeah,
we flipped it on you tonight. So
yeah, well, we believe our ethos is a bit about promoting what other artists are doing too. So I mean, like, you talked about promoting others, and I think that's important, and it's part of what we want to do here at Beards. And it was kind of our idea, when things got shut down, we kind of wanted to find a way to keep giving back to the community. We couldn't always do that as much financially as we can when we were open, and it was harder too with like just all the stuff going on. Like, what can we do? Well, we use our outreach, in what any way we can to highlight what other locals are about and what they're doing. And that was kind of the idea behind Beers, Cheers, and Happenings, is like, let's crack a beer, let's give a cheers, and let's see what's going on in the community. So we appreciate you coming on too.
Yeah, and you do, you touched on it, but you do a great job of helping the local artists tell their stories, through your photos and videography. I know you put together a real nice video recently. You put together other ones also, but recently for Little Bay Boards, that one was, I don't know, just a couple weeks back or something was the first time.
Yeah, Little Bay Boards has been something that I've been a part of for quite some time. And, it's a huge, the good thing I like about Little Bay Boards is that it really shows the community that we live in, and the ability to be an artist in today's world and produce wonderful content and great products
So I think we have a shot. I'm just going to put this shot up while you're talking about Little Bay Boards. This is a shot you took.
Yeah, for sure. You know,
so it's a little bit about building the brand in with the photography. I like how it's very subtle, you know, the branding in it, but it like gets it across nice too.
And the brand, I think, has a lot to do with it. You know, one thing I learned from you guys, which you guys are fantastic about, is branding of what you do.
Well, like I asked in the beginning, part of that's like what you're about too, right? So
what I'm about is
no. I mean, with the branding, something that we pride ourselves on, and we try to always be as authentic. And I think, you know, I could say the same about you after hanging around you for a year now. You know, so I think that shows through with the, you know, the type of photos and videos you actually put together for some of your clients.
Yeah, no, I enjoy it. What I do for the clients. I think the hardest part is to probably create something that's different than what other people are putting out, you know?
Yeah. I can remember in art school in my 20s hearing from teachers, you know, listen, it's kind of like music, like every note's been played.
Right.
You know, but you can still arrange them different ways, you know, or not that I played music, but in the visual arts, I heard the same thing. Like, well, kind of everything's been done. Every subject's been touched on. So that's where that authenticity and the artist part of it comes in, right? Having a different angle, a different view on how you should make a composition with a photograph, you know, in your case.
I think people tend to find their style a little bit. Like you can tell when someone's just like lost, you know, and when they have kind of like something they do that their angle, and if it's a good photographer or painter or something, I feel like you can, without knowing who did it, without someone telling you who did it, if you've seen enough of their work, you kind of know. You could make a good guess at it. I feel that way with your portfolio. Like,
you know, the fun thing is it's getting to the point where people are starting to know that that's an image that I've taken or an image that I've produced and created, which is kind of fun. It's also kind of scary, you know, because you know, maybe it's not the greatest thing or whatever, but it's kind of fun having a name for what we do. You know, I try really hard to produce something that's different than something anybody's ever seen before. Or, I mean, so many people have cameras and so many people have angles and opinions and different ways of shooting things that, you know, I try really hard to give you something that is maybe different, but not like wacky different, you know, that, you know, makes sense. You know, it all has to make sense. You just snap a bunch of photos and create a video that, you know, it all has to roll into a situation that creates something that people understand.
That makes a lot of sense. And I'd like to get in. We have a couple more pictures of yours that I'd like to get into, but I just wanted to do a welcome. We got a few more people joining us. Thanks for joining us. This is the Beers, Cheers, and Happenings show. We have Phil Hutchinson today, Northern Territory Imaging. He's a photographer. Doing a lot of cool stuff, and we're excited to be talking to him. If you have questions, throw them in the comment section. We'll bring them up. I noticed that Taylor here, shout out, big dog himself.
What's up, Taylor?
So thanks for watching and commenting.
What's that? That's the big dog. What's it called? What's the club called? Yeah. Come on.
Well, it changes, you know, different time. Big dog club depends on where we are. Could be the big dog standing on a little tree club, you know. But you know, let me say some things about Taylor and, you know, some things that have happened with Taylor and people that have done nature. So you'll see this right here, Mahar. So this is a Mahar snowboard. So the cool things about the things that happen in the state of Michigan and the community that we live in, and companies like Beards, like Gypsy, like Chandler's, like Simon's, like, you know, so many little community stores and companies that put forth effort into the people like us and like you that allow us to create things. Like Mahar sent us 3 or 4 of these snowboards that allowed us to, create content and slash down a hill and do all these wonderful things. And I told Marhar that, I shoot for Boyne and I shoot for local tourism. And if a snowboard is going to be flying through the air and it says Burton, it might as well say Marhar. So,
Marhar's a Michigan company, correct?
Together with these things that Beards does, that so many local companies do for us, that's fantastic. That, I don't even know how to go about thanking these companies such as you, honestly, that allow these things.
That's
well,
I appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks. We all work together. That's it. Like you said, that's a beautiful thing. We have a small community, so it's great to find good partners and stuff. And I was going to touch on that too. I was going to say, not only you take some pictures of some exciting stuff, but you also, like, for instance, the snowboard, you're strapping the snowboard on and you're riding too.
Yeah.
And I know that's something that you took on last winter for the most part, right? Maybe you rode earlier in your life, but you never did. You never did.
I don't. Taylor Jepson taught me how to do it, man.
Yeah. And by the end, you're riding patches in March.
Yeah,
skipping over patches of leaves. So that's me and you actually were talking the other day, Phil. We were talking about surfing, and I said, man, those surf photographers must have so much fun, because I like being in the water. I think maybe we were talking about water and boats at the time, and that's got to be a big part of the enjoyment of what you do for a living, for work, is getting in there and getting your hands dirty too.
Well, I think that's it, showing the passion for what you do.
Yeah.
If you don't care about it at all, if you really want to get a good angle on it, so to speak, with how you're going to approach it, you got to dive in, right? And learn it. And enjoy
that's
it
the best way for sure.
Yeah.
Obviously, I bet
it's not impossible to not, but
no, but I would say this. I think a safe assumption would be, just using that surf photographer as an example, the best surf photographers are probably pretty damn good surfers.
Yeah.
And
probably.
know the ocean, and know what I mean? All the stuff.
And they might have even first been into it.
Absolutely.
Or they might have got into it because they take their photography craft to a point where it's important for them to understand what they're doing enough to get a little hands-on. Maybe.
I think there's something there about wanting to document the cool stuff you're doing, because I can remember in 5th, 6th grade holding a big camcorder VHS, boarding. Me and my friends, like, I sucked at skateboarding, but I had some friends that were pretty good skateboarders, and I like to get out myself. So once we started doing cool stuff, we always joke, some of me and my buddies, that we had a bunch of footage of Jackass stuff before Jackass came out, and they started wrecking themselves for laughs,
Yeah.
So there's something there about wanting to document what you're doing. So especially now, with everybody has a camera, right? So if you're out hanging at the sandbar, well, people are going to make cool videos about hanging at the sandbar. If you're into snowboarding and you're
off the boat.
What's that?
If somebody's going to do a backflip off the boat,
there's inherited, like, somebody wants to catch that on film,
Right.
And I just think it's been around way before cell phones, is what I'm saying. Like, those big camcorders were not. It was like luggage, right?
Right.
It was not fun.
It was
to
a
record
job.
With. Yeah, it was not. And then the editing sucked too with the VHS, but that's another story.
Cutting film. Hey, I'm going to take a quick break here this
parched.
is the Beers, Cheers, and Happenings show.
Thank you, sir.
So Steve and I are going to crack a beer quick. And today we're drinking Serendipity Porter. And Phil's going to give us a cheers.
Ice cold Coca-Cola.
That's good too.
Cheers, my brother.
Cheers.
I can't find the camera.
It's over here.
I got a screen and everything. I'm not very good at this.
So,
I do got to say, one of the most fun things that I do is I'm fortunate enough to work with a lot of local people in our community. A lot of companies that believe in me and us and the vision that I like to see how things should be shaken down. But you're one of the most fun people to work with.
Thanks.
Very creative. It's fun. It's set up. It's organized. We
get better every day.
Trust me.
I'm not afraid to jump in. I'll tell you that much. If we don't have the time to organize.
I was impressed. We got shot lists together for the last photo shoot. We did.
That was good.
And I felt really good about that. That really, it helps. I don't think it takes away from the process. You know, you can still be quite creative within structure. There's always that balance.
You
like,
improv.
yeah, like how much structure is too much, and like you lose the creativity.
Yeah.
But I think
well, I think
I stress a lot more about the creative endeavor if it's not a little bit planned, right? And then it's harder because a lot of times, right? Because a lot of times I'm in the thing, and if I haven't planned it out, then I'm worrying and I'm trying to be in it. And so for me, I can actually be more creative if I know it's taken care of, so to speak. Like, okay, we know what we're doing.
Yeah.
When we worked with the Rattlers, I mean, that was a big deal. I mean, there was a lot of people involved. You know, there was a huge property involved.
We had one day.
We had one day.
Mm-hmm.
You know, X amount of takes with the audio with Steve Struve. You know, Steven Struve, our sound guy, did a great job on that, and the Rattlers were great, obviously. But yeah, continue, please. Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off.
Well, I don't know.
So
that's not where I ended. I mean, there's so many good opportunities that are available to us as our little community, you know. And
it's very cool.
The funny thing is about our little community is that it's really not that little, you know. I mean, so many people come here and so many people want us to entertain them, you know, and when they come here, you guys know, I mean, you're in that business. It's we're like clowns, like well, we're intelligent clowns. I mean, we're not, and no offense to clowns, whatever it may be.
Hey, that's a no offense to clowns. My friend Gavin Bosco's terrible.
You know, it's fantastic that we have this wonderful place that people are dying to come to. I mean, literally dying to come here. You know, we have this beautiful lake and this piece of water and this land, and it's just unbelievable that we have this thing that's always going to keep going, you know, and it's Northern Michigan, and it's what we do, and it's, you know, the $1 Million Sunset, and Bob Seger, and, you know, all these great, wonderful adventures that we all love, you know, Sturgeon Bay and Sneaky Beach and the Petoskey State Park and blah, blah, blah. And there's just so many wonderful things that, I don't know. I consider myself terribly lucky to even be a part of this community. So
how did you, that's a good lead in, like how, you know, how did you become part of this community? Cause I don't know your whole story. I think,
neither do I. I mean, we become friends over the last year or so, at least. We met at, I think the first time we talked, if I remember correctly, you can correct me if I'm wrong, was at a Christmas, open house at Mary B and at Little Bay Boards. Actually, we were in Little Bay Boards workshop, and that's where you and I first spoke to each other. It was brief, but that's the first time we spoke. I don't know if you remember that, but I do.
So let's get out of the way and let him. How did you? What's your story?
So let's see. So I probably I moved to Harper Springs in probably 1974. I lived above the Lyric Theater for a couple of years, and then I moved.
That's pretty cool.
You know, my mother was a Northern Michigan person. My father was a Detroit person. So I figured it out between the two. But you know, my heart laid up here. You know, 100%. You know, I spent some time as an artist looking to be an illustrator. You know, I wanted to illustrate things. I wanted to be a Disney artist, a Marvel artist, a DC artist, somebody that illustrated things. But I struggle with, you know, ADD on a regular basis. And, you know, one day I had a camera in front of me, and it created a quicker medium for my brain. That, you know, I'm brain works fast. So it was nice to have this camera that allowed me to create an instant medium of the stuff that was going on in my head, you know. You know, instead of drawing it out and creating all these little things, I could create it pretty quickly with my camera, and you know, and then it just perfected over time, and you know, I mean, it's really a long story. But
how did you?
The short version of it was it gave me a quicker medium to create the things that were fast popping in my head.
So here's something that strike. I always think it's interesting to see how people get to something and then how that might affect what they do. So how would you say, like, obviously you cared a lot about illustration, you know, that's what you were talking about. You want it to be an illustrator. How would you say that visual lens has influenced your photography?
Well, I think it allowed me to understand how, you know, how the body works. You know, I studied a lot of, you know, fine art in college, and, you know, and I studied a lot of life photography and life illustration and things of that nature. So I could see how the body works. So, you know, I mean, depending on how your arms are and, you know, the shadows that go into it, I think that really helped how I'm going to pose people. You know, I mean, you can't.
I
just
think that's
people
really
or all compositions.
I think that's big though, because that's part of the style, I would say, and that's interesting. I wasn't expecting that exactly, but part of your style that I always see is the people. Like I like taking pictures, but I rarely take pictures of people. I more like taking pictures of like nature and that kind of stuff. But you know, you have to have an eye for how to compose the subject, especially with people. I think it can be tricky. So that's interesting.
Or when to shoot the live action stuff, you know.
Yeah.
Some of that's like, you know, you get the natural model as opposed to.
I think you get that over time, you know, and I honestly, I think that, you know, I spent some time as a wait staff. You know, I would always supplement my income through being a waiter. Proud of it. I think it's awesome. I think that's half the reason that I can walk up to a group and say, "Hello, my name is so and so," and so.
That's great training for breaking the ice. That's for sure.
Sure. But it allows you to use the words that it takes to go to those people. You know, you can't just walk up and say, "Hey, I want to take a picture." You know, because
here to take your picture.
I heard an actor,
a woman and 3 children. And say,
right? Yeah. No, your people skills come into play.
So I think that has a lot to do with it. And then, you know, just being in the tourism business for, you know, 8-9 years with a pretty solid publishing company in the state of Michigan has allowed me to, you know,
a lot of reps.
Be the person that makes other people feel comfortable when you walk up to them and ask them to snap their photo, because it's a very intimate request. You know, taking your photo is very intimate. You know,
especially
if I was you and your wife and ask you to take your photo, I mean, it's odd. You know.
It can be, you know, some people, you know, it can be depending on the approach. You know, that's
right.
People skills are so important. Yeah.
So because we're talking about people, talking a little, going to do a quick introduction again. Cheers and Happenings. We're interviewing Hutchinson with Northern Territory Imaging. He's a photographer. If you got questions, please throw them in the comment stream. We're happy to answer questions about
got all the answers
or art. We got all the answers.
They're not all right, but we got them all.
Yeah.
We got answers.
We're sitting in a real brewery right now, so shoot.
Real quick, since we're talking about your photos and we're talking about human imagery, I'd like to pop up one that you took here, and have you just give a little like background, what it's about, how the composition's important, and it might be cropped. I apologize if it's cropped a little.
This is kind of heavy, huh?
My youngest daughter. So we as a family are Native American. You know, it's a strong subject.
Yeah, it's heavy. That's what I was saying.
It's heavy.
I think it's important, if you're up for it, to touch on it.
I am up for it. So Lois is 14 years old. We are Native American, as I said. Behind her is a Jesuit church, and you know, we all are dealing with the way the world is dealing with racism, however it may be. We don't need to get into all that right now, but Lois's statement with this, and I'll just leave it at that. And I don't want to get into a bunch of, you know, questions and answers about why and how he feels that way. But, you know, she's 14 years old. She's a Native American girl. She believes heavily in how things have evolved over time, how things are now, how young women are dealt with now, how young brown women are dealt with now. which is a big deal in today's world. So this red hand over her face is the missing and murdered Indigenous women's what's that called?
Symbol, essentially.
Yeah.
Like the movement.
Essentially, the symbol for that.
Right.
This red hand over the mouth.
It's an awareness movement.
It is a huge awareness.
Yeah. Can you touch on that?
Women that are and young men, and mainly women, that are taken away from what we have on a regular basis is unbelievable. The number, it's crazy. So she's heavily involved in that, and this was a photo shoot that we did last summer to raise awareness for it, and it caused a lot of turmoil. It caused a lot of backlash. It caused a lot of whys and why is this girl doing this? A lot of people don't understand it, but it's a huge photo.
So was the picture her idea then to do, and then you helped with
the idea was mine and hers. She wanted to depict something that was heavy with that movement, and it was my idea to put that in front of the Jesuit church, which is, it's a whole end of the story with that. There's plenty of good people and plenty of bad people, so we don't need to get into the whole nickel and dime things about that. But her belief in that, and what she wanted to prove with that image, it did it.
It's powerful picture. It makes a statement. I mean, I don't think...
we could have this whole discussion another day. We all need different things, and it's not really fair for us to put all these people on the spot and try to figure all these things out right now.
Sure.
I don't think.
No, I know what you're saying.
But I would say, this is again, when we talked about the posing humans, understanding the body composition, sort of coming from an animation background. I didn't know anything. I've seen this photo. I didn't know any of that background.
Yeah, I did. I did. I knew a little bit for sure. That's
what it was about. Yeah. But when you see it on Facebook or whatnot, you stop, right? Because it draws you, like the photograph.
Well, it's super narrative
and the technique, and
and it's powerful.
It is. So, having said all that, I'm very proud of Lois Hutchinson. She's that person that stood there and did those things and deals with it, man. She deals with it. She deals with it on a regular basis, and I don't honestly think this is the right publication or the right opportunity to discuss these things. I would like to keep it light and
that's fine. That's fine.
I'll tell you what, gentlemen, that woman right there, that young lady is our future, and she's got
well,
that's how you feel.
Something I can't swear on here, but
you can swear.
She's got balls of steel, man. I tell you what, that girl is prepared for the future. She is our future, and she's going to do something. I tell you what, man. There's
beautiful.
No doubt in my mind that the things she says and wants to promote, and the way she goes about putting out something like that. That's a big deal to put her.
Yeah, you're putting yourself out there.
On the cross of Christ, and I don't know. So.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that you would choose to use family too, but it sounds like she kind of came to you. But that's an interesting thing, because I see your girls a lot, right? You have a couple girls.
I have 2 daughters. Yep.
2 daughters, and your photography, and I've wondered, like, are they into that, or is it just like dad's clicking around because that's what you do, But it sounds like this was really a collaborative effort, and something like this. It wasn't. They're not passive subjects, right? They're
especially not Lois is into those things. She had things to say. She wants the world to know that maybe the way things used to be are not the way things should be.
Well, outside of that photograph, just talking about, like, you photographed them quite a bit. I think Peter was
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean they're really subjects. He's saying like I used to chase the family around back in the day when it was the film camera and nobody held the camera, and
They
he's
don't
like, oh, here, right? And everybody is like covering faces trying to get away. But your girls seem like, you know, natural. I mean, they're beautiful and they seem to be willing to get the photographs with you. So that's
they have been at times. I mean, they're over
at
it.
times it's you pushing them is what we're getting.
I mean, that's the idea and mine. And then she had a girlfriend named Clementine Wolf, who's one of her best friends, who, you know, chose not to have the, you know, the hand on her face, but she also stood behind her, you know, and stood there, you know, like a bad little badass. And, you know, this is my girl. If you have anything to say about her, you're gonna have to go through me. So, you know, I think I think the excitement of youth is wonderful. There's so many different ways that the youth is looking at our existence, you know, and they're trying to change things, I think, for the better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, we don't need to get into all the politics of it. I think there are problems, and I think that it's important to have, you know, I think it's important for people to be willing to stand up for what they believe, though, too, and so I think that's maybe encouraging in that, like, more people are getting involved in what they believe, and it's less just like let things run how they are. We had a comment I just was going to pop up quick to see if you knew at all about this movie. I'd not heard of it. Wind River. It apparently deals with some of the issues that you were, you know, that the photograph deals with. So
I think that was a movie that had to do with kidnapping and what the heck. And just the
like human trafficking
is
a problem in a lot of communities, actually. But is, you know,
I hear things that Michigan is one of the most human trafficking states that we have. You know,
really?
I mean, it's scary as all heck.
It's hard to understand because it's like I mean, and maybe we're just jaded, you know, like, but we don't like see it maybe as much not being in the city, right? But even there, I think you walk
though quite a bit.
Yeah. We really do hide out in these little, you know, Petoskey, Harbor Springs, Point City, East Jordan, all these little communities that it is.
I've traveled quite a bit, and I think traveling, that's a thing that I believe is important for everyone to do, because and it depends on how you travel. Like, I try to really find local people. I try to find local organizations that are doing stuff when I travel, mission organizations, those type of places too, that maybe are working with people that are more marginalized, because it really gives you an appreciation. I mean, obviously you want to help too, right? But it gives you an appreciation. And like we were talking in the beginning, how fortunate it is to live here and like be where we are, you know? So, all right. Well, maybe we should move on to a little more of your photography. You had another picture, and I think you feature a lot of like northern Michigan. Why don't you give us a little bit about this photograph? And
when I first started my career, I worked for a company that was a pretty major publishing company in the state of Michigan. We dealt with the shipping industry. So every couple of years, I was allowed to board these ships, and I would ride them from Two Harbors, Minnesota, down to Zug Island and back, which is the Detroit area. So that allowed me to, shoot a lot of these things like this, which is, two freighters meeting in the day or whatever it may be. But this is the rock cut, which I don't think a whole lot of people have been down the rock cut or even know what the rock cut is. But
I don't.
It's a pretty big deal in the state of Michigan. It's down through Detroit, through what's that called? Sugar Island. So when you go through the locks and you go down through,
you go down to Ontario?
No. So when you go through the locks, you come down through this thing called the rock cut, which is cut through the UP, which allows you, then you open up to Lake Huron, and to your right will be the bridge, and then and it's called the Rock Cut. So it's pretty intense. It's pretty long, and the whole process of being on these freighters, it's quite fantastic, and people die to get on these things. And
was it your job to shoot the day-to-day on the freighters?
I spent 8 to 10 days on these things. I would go from Two Harbors, Minnesota. I would drive from Petoskey to Two Harbors, Minnesota. I'd spend a little time there, and then I'd hop one of these things, and I'd run down to Zug Island, which is down in the Detroit area, and then I'd go back. But there's 8 to 10 hours on these things as they load up the coal in Two Harbors, Minnesota, or Sturgeon, what's that called? Wisconsin.
Green Bay?
You're in Wisconsin. So you come to these places, and then you go down to like Zug Island or Monroe, or all these places, and it takes. They load these things up, and I think it'd be wonderful if the American public learned a little bit more about where and how much effort goes into flicking that little light on, man. When you flick your little light on, when you go into the bathroom, and you turn the switch. Yeah. There's a bunch of dudes that are loading coal and busting butt and humping up and down.
Were you doing this for like recruitment efforts? Or
doing this for I worked for a publishing company for about 8 years. In the major point of that publishing company was this right here, which was the Seaway Review, which was a magazine about the shipping industry. You go back and forth all day, every day, and they hump coal and they hump taconite, and they, and they create things that we all need. Mainly electricity. All that coal that they pump back and forth provides the electricity that we need.
Well, shipping is really an interesting thing when you think about it, and with all the international too, and where things all come from and how it makes the system work. And I think it was interesting in this whole, we got just a tiny taste of an interruption in service, sort of with the COVID crisis, where things were delayed or whatnot. We rely on this global infrastructure. I think it's insane to think, that we're 100% independent, which is, if you get out there and look a little bit, and even like we've done a little bit with our beer internationally, and just the logistics of getting beer cold from here to halfway across the world so that it stays fresh is astounding that people have figured that out.
Imagine that.
Yeah. They're gonna figure anything out. It's gonna be,
and they're like you said, there's a lot of people working hard, long days, sailors. My cousin,
it's a great gig. I tell you what, anybody looking for a career, I'll tell you what, it's a wonderful gig.
There's pluses and minuses. A lot of them, are on 3 months, but you're on like 3 months straight.
Yeah.
And then you're off for several months, which is great. It can be hard if you have a family and whatnot. So I think there's struggle. I think it's important to appreciate what people are doing.
Yeah, like you said.
And I think there's value in that work. I always appreciated Mike Rowe, some of the stuff he was pushing, because I think there's value in work that is often undervalued. The things that keep us going are often undervalued because they're not glitz and glamour. So that's what I appreciate a lot about like this photograph of yours is, this captures some of the beauty of it, right? There's a lot of hard hours and days, but like, even if it gets people thinking a little bit about like, oh wow, look at that freighter, I wonder what that's
one's empty, one's full, we're just going back and forth.
Yeah.
Take care of the general population and, electrify them, I suppose.
Yeah. So this picture looks like, do you have I'll get a little technical here, but like, these are big boats. Is this a fairly wide angle lens, or is this where you're standing? Or
it's a wide angle lens. The boat's probably about 9 to 1,000 feet. It's not the Tregurtha, it's the Got. The one on the right, the Got. You can see the one on the left. The Spear, I think. So I think the Got's probably 9 to 1,000 feet. god, or I can't remember exactly what it is, but and then there's the Paul R. Tregurtha, which is the Queen of the Great Lakes, which is probably about 1,200 feet long. So I mean, these see these little tops right here. See those all those little lids?
Yeah.
That's where they load that up, you know, and it's strategically loaded, you know. I mean, they don't just load it up down the line, you know. They load up the front, and they come to the back, and they keep it balanced. You know, it's a good 8 to 10 hour process loading that thing up easily.
Yeah.
Well, that's some shipping. That kind of. I had a question. Did you have something to say?
No, go.
Okay, I was just going to say. Speaking of ships, you've been involved with the new project that's in the works, Little Traverse Bay Ferry Co.
Bay Ferry Company, yes. Yeah.
Oh, my head blew up.
Your head
I lost my head.
Oh man. I don't know what's going on there.
That's all right. But yeah, you want to touch on that? Well,
I do. It's a super cool process. You know, the company's brand spanking new.
The boat.
You know, these guys took on a lot to try to put this boat on the water for the community, to give people the opportunity to, you know, spend some time out on the water. You know, not a lot of us. The most of us that grew up in this area have spent time on this water. We all know what it's like to be out in the middle of the bay. It's wonderful. We can bob around out there on a calm day. The majority of the people that come here have no idea what it's like. I mean, they don't even know where Walloon is, you know, let alone being on the middle of the bay. So I think this is a great opportunity to showcase that. I mean, you can only imagine somebody from, yes, sir.
Well, tell explain what you know what it's going to be. We know because we've spoke about it. We live in the area, but there might be some people that are watching from around the state that might be visiting the area down the road or whatever. So you're talking about Little Traverse Bay and Lake Michigan, and can you just briefly touch on how the
boat's going to go from Petoskey to Harbor Springs every hour, back and forth, and 3 times a day it's going to go to Bay Harbor. So it'll create a triangle. So it's going to go, you know, Petoskey a bunch of times, and then 3 times a day it's going to go to Bay Harbor, pick up the folks.
So I'll be able to hop on this thing as opposed to driving around the bay and finding a parking spot, get off on either Petoskey or Harbor Springs, go grab myself a delicious sandwich and a beer wherever I might want to. Don't have to worry about driving back, hop on the boat, and it brings me back.
Correct.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Cool. I mean, that's a new experience, you know, like you said, this area has so much to offer. I'm excited to see how that turns out, and when it gets running, it's gonna be great.
You know, one of the most exciting things I've heard about the whole process is that some of the commuters, like some of the, you know, the wait staff that wants to come over to the pier and say, you know, I live in Petoskey, but I work a lunch shift and I'm going to be done. Yeah. How the heck am I going to deal with that madness of traffic down M1T? I'm going to jump on the ferry. So I hope that works.
Yeah, I hope that works for some folks too. That'd be cool.
You know, it's still a theory, but I think it's going to. I think it's cool.
Yeah, cool.
I think I had a comment here I was trying to read. So I think she might have been referencing the waves. We were talking a little bit about the ferry and how, you know, getting out on the bigger lakes maybe give you a real sense of how big they really are, right? You know, whereas oftentimes we just hit up the inland lakes with our smaller boats and friends and family. But
that's what I have, is a smaller boat. So I like getting out on the big water, but I really watch the weather because I've been out there a couple of times. I have like
you know, it's gonna be scary.
Well, as big as pretty big though, you know.
Well, you realize the power. I mean, you're talking here like we just talked about this photograph, right? Like 1,000-foot boats, and I mean these things are running the lakes, but even those.
Also, maybe 3-4 years ago. I mean, the water is so much different now. I mean, you know, I don't want to scare people off, but the water is different, man. It's a scary little.
Well, it can be. You got to watch the reports for sure.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
I think it's okay. I mean, our boat's plenty capable of doing what it does. I mean, it's
it's going to carry
a little sluggish. I like the way the boat looks. I mean, it's meant to cut through water. I mean,
it's designed for it. Yeah, no, I'm not trying to scare people off.
That's for sure.
Yeah, no, I'm not trying to scare anybody. I'm going to jump on it.
I'd love to give it a shot. I think it's going to be fun.
Yeah. I mean, it's meant for big ocean water. So,
Yeah.
what we have here is different from ocean water, and it's still big waves and it's quicker, churny, but
I had some experiences out there, so I try to watch close now if I'm going out, because I think one of those big ass ships that you were working on went by one day, because there was the normal weather waves and then a set of I'm not exaggerating, 7 or 8 foot rollers came in. It was obviously off of something big that drove by outside the bay. It scared the shit out of me.
True.
Well, we've touched on a handful of your photographs, a few other things. Hold on, we got one more question. I'm gonna look here. Oh yeah, she was saying you could take a bike on board, right? On the little bay.
Yep.
So that's a great
way
way to run around the area. You can. That'd be a fun day, biking.
I think one of the most fundamental things that the fair is going to provide for people is the ability to, save some time from driving around. So, I live in town. Okay. So I will go to Gurney's and get a sandwich. Do I want to drive all the way around, or can I catch a ferry for $5, $10, whatever it may be, go over there, dink around in Harper Springs, get some fudge, get a Gurney's, laugh with a couple people, and come home, and then walk uptown.
You could literally walk, quote unquote, to Harper Springs that way. You walk down to the ferry, boat across, walk to downtown, come back, walk. I mean, it's pretty cool when you can do that. Or if you live in biking distance and you take bikes, you could bike in from a little bit further out of town and hit the ferry up.
Or if you're bike, with parking at a premium, if you don't have to find 2 parking spots.
Oh yeah.
It's good just to find one and then ride the boat. Yeah, that'll be
I like it.
Something to look forward to.
I like it a lot.
Look at your curly hair.
I know, man. It's getting long. I haven't had it cut in a while. Is it showing up in this real brewery behind me?
Here, hold on.
If I was behind some bricks or something, it might show up better. But we're in a real brewery, so.
Do you want some bricks?
I don't know.
Steve.
Oh, whoa! That's movie magic.
You know what?
Oh,
you're a brick wall. That's why you're winning these belts.
You're dealing with the tag team champs.
Yeah.
We don't know of what. We don't wrestle, but we got belts.
Yeah.
If you're the champs.
Yeah, I don't know what this means.
If anybody's got a problem.
All right.
Oh, back in the real
we're back in the real brewery now.
Yeah, that's good.
So if you got real brewery questions, then let us know. So Beers, Cheers, and Happenings. We've had a great time here with Phil Hutchinson, and we're probably wrapping up in the next 5-10 minutes. So if you do have any questions, please throw them in the comments. We'd love to get engagement. Phil's a photographer. One thing we haven't touched much on that I thought would be nice to hit a little bit is you've been getting a little bit more into videography, and mainly in the drone world. How has that gone for you? Kind of a 2-part question. 1, drone specific, but 2, also bringing new tools into your workflow. How does that affect your creativity and your process?
Well, that's a good question. As far as the drones, I thought it was very important in the beginning to get the latest and greatest and create the things that would be, totally epic in my mind. With the equipment that I thought I needed, and then looking back on some things that I didn't necessarily need with drone work,
Meaning the drone.
I think, I think that the equipment that you think you need as a droneographer, as a videographer, as a pilot, as somebody who flies a drone, gets in the way a lot of your creative path, the what you're trying to do. The fact that I need this huge drone and I need to swoop in and I need to make these epic things.
Widest shot as I can get.
It's insane. But now I have this little drone that, I can do all the things I can do with the big drone with that. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I think hindsight is something that you really deal with. You know, you look at the things that you think you need to do, and then you look at what you've really created, you know, and then people like Steve says, I need you to do this. I need a quick flyby.
Mm-hmm.
And it's unnecessary to have this huge conglomerate of mess that where you can just have this little, and it's, you know, it takes time. And
well, I think, you know, the tools give you certain
they do.
flexibility.
They get in the way. They get in the way a lot of your creativity.
Well, they don't define what
Well,
the tools don't define.
I'm going to push back on that a little, Phil.
Yeah.
I'm going to push back on that a little and say, I hear what you're saying, but I think, and maybe you'll disagree with me, but I think also no matter what the tool, if you put a drone, or just for argument's sake, now a drone in my hand, same drone as you have, and I have no experience with it, and then we give one to Peter and we give one to yourself, we're all asked to shoot the same subject, say a kid's basketball game. I think at the end you're going to come out with different shots and stuff. So I'm just, you know, that's an example. I would say like a paintbrush. I can give Peter the best paintbrushes money can buy. I could take the shittiest ones, no offense.
Yeah.
I'm going to still paint better than Peter.
Yeah.
Well, of course.
You know, that's like people used to tell me about golf clubs, you know, and you know, when I used to golf just a tiny bit with my friends in my younger days, and you need the, you know, the $600 drive. If I have $1,000 driver or a $20 driver from the garage sale, I'm probably going to hit the ball the same, quite frankly, because it's, you know, it's not the driver's fault. It's my fault, you know? So I would push back on that a little bit, that even though you're going to find limitations with your tools to at a certain point. Also as an artist, I think that you're still able to use a tool with limitations in a unique way.
Well, limitations sometimes create creativity.
Yeah, that's how I mean. Yeah, like I'm forced to do things, and I'm like, well, let me. How are people not using this?
Yeah,
I try to go.
And I think maybe the point Phil was making is it's
two different points.
Sometimes you're like think that you need all this fancy stuff to get your creativity out, and it's really like no, the creativity is
I guess we're saying the same damn thing, Phil. My bad. That was my point about the paintbrushes, I guess. I guess kind of saying the same thing. My bad.
You know, and I think it's you know, people ask me the best camera and whatnot, and you know, really at the end of the day, it's the one that makes you comfortable. It's the one that, you know, I mean, if you're trying to produce something for Polo, obviously they're not going to want, you know, a bunch of low res stuff, you know. But if you're just trying to create for yourself and you still have this thing about you that you need to create, then what does it matter what you shoot with? You know, it's a box that creates light, and it's up to us as artists to dazzle you, Peter. I mean, to dazzle anybody that
the viewer
wants to believe in us, you know, and wants to see what we create. You know, I mean, look at that. I can't remember. He's dead now. I can't remember who he was, but he was a famous Sports Illustrated photographer that shot with a bullshit disposable camera.
Oh, okay.
All the time. That was his thing. But he shot all these wonderful models like Elle Macpherson and all these things with a disposable camera. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. Once you create this name for yourself and who you are as a person, you know, then it's that, you know. But you have to create this name first of all, which is super scary. But
yeah.
Well, and you got to have the work that stands behind it.
Yeah, of course.
You know, you got to, you know, when you come to the table. So,
and the only last thing I would say on that angle is that it's good to start doing something too, though. I think sometimes people think that their work has to be too excellent or like perfect or exactly where they want it to be before they start putting anything out. And I think that then you never really get going.
No.
And so I think that's the other side. Like you talked about creating for yourself. And I think if you're creating for yourself, that it gives you that freedom to say, I'm going to try this. I'm going to do that. I'll put it out there. Maybe some people will follow along, but I'm creating it for me. It's not really about if people follow along. And I think that's a lot of times when the best stuff comes out.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. All right. Well, Phil, it's been great having you on the show. Is there anything else? If people want to learn more about you, where should they go to look?
Well, I suggest you go to my Facebook page at Philip Hutchinson Photography, or look me up on the internet at Northern Territory Imaging and Design.com. You know, I'm pretty easily accessible. You know, it's not hard to find me.
And you're on Instagram too, right?
Yep. Northern Territory Imaging and Design. That's who I am. So
that's who you are.
Awesome.
Well, it was great to have you. I'm going to give you a cheers. I think Steve.
I have an empty glass, but I'll give you an empty glass.
We'll do it.
It was super nervous. It's way out of my comfort zone.
Oh, you did great, man. Thanks for joining us.
Love you guys very much. I love working with you, and I like being your friends. And
awesome.
Likewise.
I appreciate that.
Thanks.
Cheers.
All right. Thanks for joining us, everybody.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us. Until next week, live at 5, beers, cheers, and happenings.
Empty glasses.